Larger.
Oh, great. So we're here for the final section of our video recordings for Trajectoria, and in this section we have with us today Ben Thomas and also Megumi Ito, who are the artists that, well, Charlie collaborated with Ben and I collaborated with Megumi. So we're very happy to have them here. Megumi, do you want to perhaps just very briefly introduce yourself, and then Ben, you can do the same?
Okay, so let me start first. I'm Megumi Ito, and I'm a Japanese painting artist. And as you might hear a Japanese painting for the first time, I don't know if you already knew it, but I'm using the Japanese traditional way of drawing, and I am using Japanese paper and brush and pigments, all handmade by the wonderful artists themselves. So I really have proud of it to introduce you. Yes.
Thanks, Megumi. And we can also link to the materials and the kind of makers of the materials that you use if you want to, because that's quite important to you as well.
Yes, it is extinguished again. Yes. So it's a traditional way of making. So the people are getting old and it's extinguishing. So it is a very beautiful things as it is, but also it's has the historical way of I want to let the world know that we have such a beautiful things in Japan that you haven't discovered yet. And what I draw is, it's kind of abstract, but it always shows my feeling about nature, the beauty of the nature. Yes, every time I watch, the beautiful rivers or mountains surrounded by myself, I never get bored by it. Every time it's so fresh and it takes my heart. So I want to express these experience of myself.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's absolutely lovely and a very good introduction to you and your work. Yeah, Ben, would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Sure. Yeah, my name's Ben. I'm also based in Japan. I've been living in Nagoya for the last 6 years or so. I'm actually an English teacher by trade, but I do illustration and some other kind of design work on the side sometimes. So in terms of my illustration, I usually work digitally. And I, like drawing, people, stories, and things like that, and working with kind of color and kind of different ways that can affect the viewer, I suppose. Yeah. So.
There was actually a really lovely story about Ben's colors, because our collaboration exploring people's lives on the Tonle Sap River. So water was very much at the forefront of the stories we were telling in children's experiences of water. And then when Ben drew the illustrations, he actually had been using watercolor effects in his illustration. So that was just something that we happened on, wasn't it? We hadn't had that discussion, but it very much fit with the theme.
Could you tell us a little bit about the process behind that collaboration and how like it's an ongoing collaboration, isn't it? You know, it's an ongoing project. So, you know, where are you now in that process, and like where do you kind of envisage that ending up?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that I'm extremely grateful to work with someone like Ben, who's not only incredibly talented and gifted, but is a really trustworthy person. And I think in our project, which is very much in its infancy, really, we haven't at all like it hasn't really been birthed fully yet. So we're very much in process. But one of the things that for me was quite important in telling, what I say telling stories, I actually want to just say that it's about representation, because the work that Ben and I have been doing, I've already written it. It's there as a thesis. It's now being written into a monograph. So the text is there. What Ben and I are doing are re-representing that text. And I've called that retrospective representation in an entanglements article that I've written. But to give someone stories which are third hand, because they're stories told to me, they're stories that I've written, it was very important that when I gave those stories over, I could trust the person. And that was really what led me to work with Ben, because I had to make some hard choices. Why didn't I go to a local person? For instance, I work in Cambodia. There's Cambodian artists out there. First and foremost, I hadn't developed a relationship with a Cambodian artist that I knew I could entrust stories of a very personal nature to. I'm sure there are incredible artists out there to work with, but because I'd already left field work and written up the thesis, for me, it was important that I didn't just give this stuff away to any old person. And second of all, there's a lot of political tension in Cambodia regarding the issue of Vietnamese and the statelessness that the population face. So I had to be very careful not to allow bias or opinion of that situation to also seep into the work. Now, of course, that means there's a cultural decision to be made. Ben is a Western man. He's living in Japan. He's got his own style, and will create his own architecture of meaning when he draws the stories. But for me, it was really important that I had that relationship with Ben, that I could say, here's the text, this is what we're going for. Absolutely, here's your space. And stuff with the watercolors is it's like an example of Ben's fingerprint on it, really, but also where we could have that open dialogue. How have you found that open dialogue, Ben, as an artist?
Yeah, I think mostly it's been really helpful, actually, kind of getting feedback from you, because, you know, as you said, you were very concerned with, you know, representation and, you know, how do we tell this story in the best way? And, you know, I had the same concerns. You know, I think at one point I message you and say, are you sure I'm the right person for this? Because like, I'm this white guy living in Japan. Like, but I think, yeah, having your feedback and also like hearing from you of like the, you know, your contacts in Cambodia, their response to like the artwork was really encouraging. And yeah, it was a really good, helpful process, just kind of to make sure that, you know, we told these stories well, in a way that, you know, the people whose stories they are would be happy. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that, you know, what is key here is it's the relationship that you have, as you said, Charlie, of trust, and, you know, that you have this back and forth process, and you can kind of be quite vulnerable. Ben, you can say, oh, am I really the person for this job? And it's really, you know, it's built out of friendship and that trust that you have with each other. And I feel, you know, exactly the same with Megumi as well, that we've entered into this sort of collaboration because, you know, we know each other well and trust each other. And, you know, we've had many long conversations before, you know, even thinking about doing this kind of collaboration. And actually, you know, the topic that Megumi's painting is exploring it's kind of like purpose in life, or in Japanese it's called ikigai. And we'd actually talked about this, you know, when I was back in Japan and there in person, and had, you know, long conversations about that. So, you know, it was out of a kind of long relationship and friendship that then we were able to kind of, you know, move this and kind of do something together in a practical way. And yeah, I guess we've only just sort of started on this collaboration journey, and this was the first thing that we've done together in this way. But it's really kind of been a really good experience, at least from my side, and seeing Megumi's artwork and then talking about it with her, and you know, that whole process of kind of learning that comes from that was really, really, you know, amazing for me. Megumi, how was it for you?
Yeah, thank you, Lola. And the timing was perfect for me. Yes, because yes, I had my turning point of my life back in few years ago, and I lost my husband suddenly, and my life has changed. And if Lola have asked me to collaborate, let's say a year ago or 2 years before, I wouldn't say yes for this project, because I couldn't think about anything else in my life at that point. But now I'm becoming, I don't know how to say, I saw the depth of my life, deepest hollow of my life. Then I touched the very deep place, and I'm getting up from the deep sea. It's like something like that. So now I'm trying to see the different world from the surface, and I want to grab something to get something that lifts me up. And Lola was, yes, the person who lifted me up from the bottom. Yes, so I really appreciate about this, Lola. Thank you so much. Yes. Yes, so as I told all of you before, but my artwork is kind of abstract. But now, when Lola asked me to draw something about my life and something about ikigai, then I've been wondering, maybe this is the good time for me to think about different way of drawing. Yeah. So I'm doing illustration as work, and I'm doing this art expression as my life. Yeah, as an artist. So I mixed it together. This collaboration. Yeah. So I'm using Japanese painting materials, but also I'm using technique of illustration and make it mixed all together for the first time. Yes, and I hope it worked well.
Yeah, I think it works beautifully, and it's really exciting for me to think about you know, having your painting alongside also my writing, because that is another kind of collaboration that people will read, hopefully read my book that I'm writing, and then they'll see your artwork, and I think together I think more meaning comes from having that kind of the visual imagery that's actually come from someone, you know, living in this place and experiencing this landscape and experiencing events, you know, there. and then combined with my writing. And I think that that can do much more than kind of any photograph could do, or even in like the short films that I've made. There's something about this, the very like physical materiality of you making this painting through, you know, these Japanese techniques, and, you know, especially that you're painting your own life, and your own is very autobiographical. So yeah, I think that's very powerful. So yeah, and that's something that I wanted to kind of tease out a little bit, is like the differences and similarities between doing this kind of autobiographical painting, which Megumi has done, and then for Ben, you know, taking the stories of others that have been, you know, passed through Charlie to you, and you know, what is similar or different in that process for you?
So I was very concerned about kind of, you know, getting it right, and you know, kind of course having a little bit of myself in there, because I can't really avoid that as an artist. But also like just putting like, you know, their story first, and making sure that you know, it was told or shown in a way that kind of honored them, and that was that they would think was good. That was kind of, I guess, for me, like the biggest problem, not problem, but issue in kind of telling the stories of someone else rather than telling my own story.
But Ben managed to, in a way that I was, when I first saw the picture Ben drew of the river ghost and one of the children looking over the boat into the water, it was like Ben was in the interview with me when I first heard that story. And I think I'd basically given Ben the thesis, which had a quote of this interview. So even I was like, wow, you know, and I'd already lived the story vicariously through the child that told it to me. But the feelings that I got from Ben's image spoke so much to the feeling I got when I first heard that story. And I think it's just that it's so wonderful how anthropology and meaning making can be extended through illustration.
Yeah, I think you've really raised a very important point there, which is about feelings. And yeah, we talked about this in our previous discussion, you know, about the power of illustration and art to convey empathetic feelings, and for the viewer to really get a sense of the emotions or of the feelings behind the story. And I think that, yeah, like Ben's work does that very powerfully. And I think with the piece that we've produced with Megumi, you know, having her interview clips then embedded as audio within the painting will hopefully help the viewer also gain the same kind of the meaning that is behind the image as well, because it's all telling a story like as a whole. Yeah, and Megumi, as kind of someone who, you know, was then interviewed, and then for me editing your interview clips, how do you feel about having your voice, you know, embedded within your painting? Because it must be something that's quite new to you as well.
Yes, of course, it was my first time to hear my voice recorded, especially when I spoke English. Yes. Yeah, thank you for editing. It must have been a lot of work for you, but yes, it was kind of something, not a- yeah, I'm Japanese, so I'm embarrassed for the first time. But on the other hand, I thank to you, because then someone who I haven't met might get the image that I really want to tell by listening to the audio, visual, and watch, see the paintings on the other hand. Yeah. So I've been thinking that people get images from from reading and watching is using different parts of our head. So it helps people to get the perfect image. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really nice way of putting it. Like it's kind of a holistic way of experiencing something through your eyes and through your ears and reading, and it's the combination of all of these different ways of telling a story. And maybe some viewers, they might be more interested or more appreciative of the image, and others might be, you know, more appreciative of the text that surrounds the image. But hopefully together they can combine to create something that is really powerful.
Yeah.
And yeah,
because when I first saw Chagall's painting, Mark Chagall,
yeah,
can you understand? Yeah. But the first time I thought, oh, it's a beautiful painting, and wow, it's something cute. It's drawing. But after I learned about the history and the things that Marc Chagall have experienced during the war, then my image for the painting have changed. Yeah. And now I know the deep meaning of what he really wants to express. So yes, like something like that. Watching for the first time and after learning and watch it again, it's different experience. And it's very unique and important thing of this era. People get image so quickly, and they knew they think they understand everything by watching the short images, but it's not. The story behind the scene is different, might be different than the first sight. So
I think that the point that was just made about integrity, you know, this integration of meaning and the image and bringing those together so that you get a full understanding, is something that I think I personally, I mean, Ben will have his own experience because he's, you know, producing the drawings. When we first embarked on this process, and you can see it on my website, and I think it's actually in this piece, I took several of Ben's images and put them into a sequence so that you'd sit 10 seconds in one, 10 seconds in another. And I even had someone overlay it with music. And that was for me an experimentation of, can someone see the whole story through illustration in one snippet? This is before we'd moved to paneling, which is the comic layout. So I think without me really sitting down and working it out, I knew that there needed to be integrity in the images, that people couldn't just run away with meaning, because again, it would compromise the stories as they're being told. So I've even done things initially, like had a sequence of Ben's beautiful drawings, and then in the middle inserted the interview transcript so that the child's voice is very prominent, so that when people are journeying, they can still land where the story should take them. And we then have moved on to paneling because, you know, the ambition, the aspiration is to create the ethnographic novel at the end. But that was for me, I guess, working out how I could integrate the stories in a way that they had integrity. So I just found that really inspiring, the way that you were just discussing this idea of like the voice and the image and bringing those things together, because I think it does draw different parts of yourself into the experience, into appreciating the art form, into what you then think when you go away after seeing it and viewing it. Yeah, Ben, did you, I think it must have been a bit weird when I started manipulating your images and sort of trying different things out with them. I don't want to put you in a corner down there, but I think we did have a conversation about that, didn't we? Like, you know, how would I manipulate them, and what that meant for you and meaning.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. So the manipulation, the only thing I can think of is maybe I think you tried this kind of wavy kind of effect, like wavy effect on one of my. I wasn't really so much a fan of that, but
and I was really glad you told me, actually. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there is kind of, obviously when you're collaborating with people, like as an artist, obviously, you know, like in the end, like the story I want to tell is the one that has been given to me, but I can't avoid putting some of myself into that work as well. And, you know, as an artist, it is kind of important for me, I don't know, to see my work represented well as itself, you know. So when we were working together, when Charlie was kind of putting those things together, I wanted it to be a good product, or not product, but a good like end result, artistically as well as in terms of like the meaning and things that is construed through like the stories and the like the quotations and things like that. Yeah.
And I think you've done that so well, Ben. You've done it really, really well. And also because Ben, you know, living in East Asia, we've both gone to SOAS. We've both studied Asian studies and Asian languages as well. So we're not complete novices when it comes to, you know, what could the iconography be? You know, what are the things that are going to resonate? And Ben is just so good at taking initiative. So a lot of our collaboration is I will just, you know, say to Ben, this is the story, this is the emotion. He'll come back and I'll, you know, there was one scene Ben drew of children playing volleyball, which is what they would always, you know, do in their spare time. It's really big in the village. And Ben drew young people drinking, you know, plastic containers with the straw, which is exactly what people do. You know, they go and they get it from the thingy. Or so there was these like really lovely cultural references that I think Ben just had the initiative, which I'm very grateful for, just to insert them in. And if, for instance, there was a drawing where we were basically showing the census that was taking place, the population census, and Ben would send me a drawing and I'd say, you know, those people in the background, if a few of them could be kneeling down, because that's basically how people might just choose their posture. You know, they might just squat. And I don't know how much time that takes Ben to go back and do that edit, but he's very open for that sort of conversation and dialogue to take place. But everything you see is literally Ben's style, Ben's talent, Ben's excellence. And I'm always blown away whenever he sends me something. It's like the best thing ever. It's like 1,000 Christmases in one hit, because I just know I could never do that. And how he brings to life something that's in my head, in my heart, is quite phenomenal. Thank you, Ben.
You're embarrassing me, but thanks.
It's really wonderful, and it just sounds like you both complement each other quite well, that, you know, you each bring different skills and different eyes, and it's working together perfectly because you have this kind of trust with each other that you can give feedback. And I think the process for me and Megumi, it was very open. I mean, I just said to Megumi, you know, I'd love it if you would like to produce an image around this topic of ikigai. And I suggested, you know, a few different possibilities, and I left it very open. And then Megumi already, I think, had a very clear idea of what she wanted to produce. But then, you know, she sent me this kind of rough idea out like an outline kind of sketch, and I was like, wow, this is really amazing. And then the final painting itself it's so beautiful, and it just has so much meaning as well. So, but I think it was very much, I wanted to leave it open to Megumi to kind of bring to it, you know, everything that she wanted to bring to it, and to be in control also over, you know, what's in the painting and what kind of topics and content is in there as well. You know, everything was within her control and her like design, and I think it's really effective. Yeah.
And Megumi, what was it like working with an academic, knowing that this work would go out into an audience that perhaps is very different to the ones that you've exhibited in before?
I've never done such collaboration, you know, so I am so excited. Yes. And my childhood dream was to be a child book artist. So it's not a child book, but it's a book. So my dream came true. Yeah, thank you.
And there's always time for the children's book later.
Definitely.